Hello everyone, how you all doing? Before we get into this series, I just want to take a few seconds to explain some things. First off, apologies on the inconsistent uploads. I've had a few birthdays over the last 2 months. I've got two more coming up, one of which is mine, so I will likely be pretty busy in the following weeks. So if my uploads are still a bit sporadic, I do apologise. Secondly, this video will have no visuals. It will literally just be a podcast style video as one, the renders of Ben 10 I can find are few and far between, to the point I could probably count them on one hand. And two, if this series was to become a thing, it makes my life a lot easier just having one series where I can take it super chill on the editing. That being said, I should explain why I'm doing this. I really love Ben 10. Like, to the point I'm 95% sure I love superheroes because of this show. This is a show I grew up watching, I'm obsessed with it, and I could sing the theme song backwards, forwards, upside down, and all of that stuff. The series was sick to me as a kid, and I still love it as an adult. So I wanted to cover something, and a big thanks to that is Pickle, who had done What If Kevin Turned Good. If you haven't seen that series, and for some reason you're watching this, go watch that. It'll be linked in the iCard and in the description. Please check it out. I can't praise that series enough. But yeah, I wanted to do this story for a little bit. I even did a short about it a few months ago. The reason I didn't do a full story is because I don't know how people will feel about it. So I decided I wanted to give it a trial. See this part 1 as more of a part 0, just to get a feel for how this story will go. And for that reason, I'll be covering only some of Season 1, just as a trial. That all being said, I want to get going, but I do just want to say, so that one dude, Bonnie's World 1539, here you go. You can stop asking for it now. That all being said, let's get into it. Our story begins with Max trying to talk both his grandkids to taking a walk with him, wanting to explore the forest that he has brought them to. However, it seems both Ben and Glenn are way too wrapped up in things. Ben trying to beat his old high score on sumo slammers, and Glenn getting a head start on next year's semester by doing some studying, leaving Max to feel alone. So to try and clear his mind, he takes a stroll into the woods. He thinks back on how rough life has been since his retirement. With Rhoda gone, he found himself feeling more lonely than ever before, so he wanted this chance to have some time with his grandkids, but it seems like his work is cut out for them. However, at this thought of his past life, remembering the good old days, something arrives in a pod, which soon changes the course of what he thought would be a fun family road trip. As the pod lands in front of Max, creating a crater like no other, in front of him lies a pod, and inside a device which Max can recognise as the Omnitrix. He had heard rumours from old contacts that the device was on the move. He can't understand why it's here, and wondering what's brought it to Earth. As he reaches out to try and see if there's any distress beacon, a note, or a hologram, something to help him understand, but as he reaches his hand out towards the pod, trying to find anything of the such, the device latches itself upon him, as Max flinches, pulling his arm back. However, unlike Ben, he doesn't freak out. He holds calm and takes a second to try and gently remove the device, only to realise it is stuck to him. He takes a second to collect his thoughts before coming up with a plan. To get to the bottom of all of this, he wants to make some calls to some old contacts when his grandkids fall asleep, hoping people like Phil or maybe Xylene might be able to shine a light on what's going on. But for now, all he can do is return to the rust bucket after a short walk. Feeling much worse than before, he doesn't even think to hide the watch as he enters the rust bucket, and Ben, being a perceptive person, can't help but notice Grandpa's new watch, asking about it. Max, caught up and off guard, is flustered for a second, but being used to lying to his family on the spot, he is quick to respond that this is a device that is used to monitor his heart, just to make sure everything's ticking correctly. A sentence which makes both kids remember just how old their grandpa is, and why they are both here. So quickly, they stop doing whatever they were doing, and help set the table and eat some food with their grandpa. Even if the first dish their grandpa brings out is totally insane and gross, after some talking, they finally find themselves having some normal food, and sitting down talking about the good old days. They sit down, laugh, and Max shares stories of his time with their grandmother. This moment makes Max smile, as this is what the trip was all about. To make all those years he fought for this planet, making it safe, while wishing he was home with his own kids, worth it. And this is his chance to show these kids the love their parents deserve to feel off him. Having this thought, he knows it's important to remove the watch. He doesn't want anything to ruin this trip. So Max is quick to hurry the kids to have an early night, reminding them that they have a long day tomorrow after Washington is quite a far way away, bribing them by telling them that he will do all of the cleaning on his own. And both nod in agreement, but decide to sneak off different devices to get some more screen time in. Once finished cleaning, Max is quick to find his old plumber badge, pop his head into the room to tell the kids that he's going on another walk to dispose of the garbage, but the kids hardly take note of this. As Max leaves to make a call, he makes it a good distance away from the rust bucket. However, he never manages to make a single call before an explosion erupts in the distance. At first, Max doesn't want to believe what his instincts are telling him, but when hearing the cries and pleas of people in danger, he knows that whatever caused that explosion is here for the watch, and his instincts kick in. There are people who need saving, and that becomes first before anything else. Not wanting to head back to the rust bucket to grab his gear, he looks down at the watch and for the first time clicks it to life, an image appearing on the dial as he presses down gently. Quickly, a transformation happens in almost record time, as Max becomes a Kincellerate, an alien Max is familiar with, having fought alongside quite a few in his time as a plumber. Knowing time is now his ally, he races off towards the flames he sees off in the distance, finding the other end of the campsite where he'd been staying with his grandkids attacked by a mecha droid, a sight which sends a shiver down Max's spine. But he has no time to think, as he has to be a hero once more. Those endangered are Max's first priority. In the blink of an eye, people are removed from the area and taken as far away as possible, the commotion causing the rest of the campsite to be evacuated. Even Ben and Gwen are forced to leave, not knowing where their grandpa is and worrying very much for his well-being. As for Max, he is already beginning to feel fatigued. Only using a short display of speed to save the people in immediate danger, he's having a hard time stopping, and he's getting very tired. He wonders if this is what elder Confederates feel like when they run, but he knows how to stop a mecha droid. He's fought hundreds, if not thousands of these in his years, so the man, thinking quick and using time, which is now his ally, to find a nearby toolbox, he equips himself with a wrench and a hammer and gets to work breaking down every part of the robot. The machine only being able to fire lasers at after images left in the speedster's path of deconstruction, before finally being turned into a pile of scraps, which Max destroys by breaking down using a crowbar. Once the machine is completely destroyed and nothing is left of it, he uses a tornado to spread the parts out as far as he can to make sure nothing is left for the public to find. It's at this time the watch begins to time out. The man is quick to get back to the rust bucket, managing to make it back just in time as he turns back to his normal self. And it's here he gets some time to think. With the campsite still evacuated, Max gets a second to think for himself. The mecha droid he just took down, he only knows one person who uses those machines, and for all intensive purposes, he should be dead. He made sure of that himself, but he is the only one who has access to machines like that. It could be an imposter trying to fill the void in space left by him. However, the old-timer's instincts tell him that's not true. He isn't sure why, but his gut is telling him that he is coming. And knowing that old Gaxi isn't far away makes Max worry. While he could make a call informing any remaining plumbers in this district of space and on Earth of what's going on, he worries Vilgax will be monitoring all radio frequencies, even the plumber's netcode, and he cannot risk his friends' lives by having them respond to his SOS call. Worst of all, if Vilgax is listening in, he would just be giving away the watch's location to the man. Worst of all, he would be putting the kids in harm's way. Max, thinking about the kids, worries about where they are and frantically starts searching for them when realising they are not in the rust bucket. While searching, he can't help but think that the best thing to do would be to take them home, knowing it would be the safest thing for them. But Max can't help but think back on the dinner they had just had together and the smiles they had shared. He missed a massive portion of his own kid's childhood, and right now he wants nothing more than to have one last memory with his grandkids, since it won't be long until they don't want to spend the summer with their grandpa. So selfishly, and against all his better instincts, he chooses to keep the kids around and continue his road trip. Once finding the kids, he gives them a hug, explaining that he was just in the woods when the explosion happened, and started running back as soon as he could. While Ben can't fathom his grandpa lying, Gwen can't help but find it weird that Grandpa went to the woods to dispose of garbage. However, she thinks no more of it when spotting the watch that was once green, now red, asking her grandpa if he's okay, if his heart's alright. The man, realizing that it's showing that the watch is timed out, explains that the machine is just letting him know that he was pushing his limits. After all, he did come running around the campsite like a madman looking for his grandkids. The trio share a hug, and Max takes the kids back to the rust bucket once the coast is announced clear. As Max helps the kids settle down to sleep, it's clear they are worried about what had happened, but soon, after a restless few hours, Max gets them down. And from here, Max decides that for now, he will be keeping hold of the watch. He has no plans to use it. He just wants to keep hold of it until he can figure out how to contact some of the plumbers without alerting Vilgax to the location of the watch. But not using the watch is easier said than done, as Max's heroic nature doesn't allow him to sit by idly when people are in trouble. So when hearing of a building collapsing down on a mother and child, Max is quick to rush off and help save the day, using his Concelerate form. And the day after that, when Animo attacks the pet store, Max is quick to defeat him as well, using once again his Concelerate form to quickly deconstruct the machine which is helping Animo control the mutant frog, and handing Animo over to the authorities. The Kraken is dealt with after Max hears Ben cry about a tentacle monster hiding in the lake, causing Max to fear Vilgax has arrived to try and take the watch, or maybe someone of his species has been hired to come and do it for him. But when searching the lake in his Pisk and Volan form, finding the mother Kraken, he learns that it just wants its egg back, and after quickly helping it return it in one night, the next day Max goes out fishing with his grandson as if nothing had ever happened. The episode of permanent retirement is also avoided, as when Verona tries to subdue Max to turn him into a Limax, Max is back in the groove of being a plumber, and is able to avoid getting subdued and quickly overpower her before transforming into a Volpomancer, which helps Max uncover the Limax ship, using the time Ben and Gwen are exploring the retirement home to quickly shut down the invasion. Max manages to do all of these things without the kids ever seeing an alien, or more importantly, him turning into one, allowing his grandkids to have a normal, boring summer vacation. The episode of The Hunted does not happen, as Max doesn't train with his transformations. He doesn't want to risk his grandkids seeing him transform, so instead is just sticking to the few transformations he is familiar with, the Concelerate, the Volpomancer, and the Piskin Volan. Granted, he doesn't see much use for that last one, but he's going to try and use it where he can, meaning the bounty hunters trying to find the watch have no idea where to start searching. As Max is not transforming, he's also not giving off signals, meaning they are desperately waiting for a ping. And unfortunately for Max, that comes in the next episode of Last Laugh, in which Ben, much like normal, is still very much afraid of clowns, likely more so without having a powerful watch to help aid him. So when leaving the tent to go for a walk around the site, soon Ben finds himself coming across the circus freak committing armed robbery, and like a kid would, he runs back to tell his parental figure, letting Max know what's going on. Having seen that Ben actually has a really good eye for these things after the whole Kraken incident, he tells Ben and Gwen to go back to the rust bucket and call the police, then stay put in the RV until he returns. He's going to go look for help on foot. The kids go to argue, but Max sternly tells them to go and not look back. The Tennysons leave in the middle of Zombozo's act. The clown watches on in disdain, but what are 3 small meals when he's got a petri dish of fear in front of him? Max finds the place Ben was talking about and watches on for a few seconds as the opening act of the circus are about to leave with the spoils of their robbery, spotting a civilian having been beat up who was clearly working in the store they have tried to rob. Activating the watch, he wants to finish this quick, so scans through the list to find his Concelerate form, pressing down on it as lightly as he can, and then turning into a Pyronite, the first mistransformation Max is forced to face. But knowing how to roll with what he has been given, he jumps into action, knowing that a drawed out fight is not going to be good for him. unaware that activating the watch has sent off a signal which will make this fight a whole lot harder. As Max slams his magma-infused fist into the face of Thumbskull, sending off a blast of fire which increases the power of this punch, sending the strongman colliding into a nearby car, nearly knocking out the toe-shaped man. As Max turns to the other circus freaks, telling them to return the items they stole, apologise to the shop owner, and then get out of town, stating this will be their one and only warning. However, an acid blast coming from, well, acid breath sends Max the message, and while a younger Pyronite would have turned the acid into steam, the moment the gross attack collides against the tectonic plates of this Pyronite, Max feels his core temperature dropping dramatically. His body and arms are beginning to stiffen up as his magma turns to stone. He knows that he is a lot weaker than a young Pyronite, but this is scary, and not wanting to be left as a statue, and more importantly powerless, he musters all the strength he can gather in just a few seconds, and fires off a blast which cuts through the acid attack and knocks acid breath cleanly out and directly into Thumbskull, leaving just Frightwig, or at least that's what the former plumber thinks, as a blast hitting his back brings the Pyronite down to his knees as he turns back to see Crab holding his pincers open, smoke still rising from the attack. Demanding the Omnitrix be handed over to him, and he might consider letting him live, Max is quick to scan up and down his opponent, figuring him to be a Priscan Preman and a bounty hunter sent here for the watch. A few questions come to Max's mind, like why has Vilgax not come for himself, making Max question if his assumption of Vilgax still being alive is wrong, but he has no time to think about that. As another blast is fired at him, Max quickly rolls out of the way and goes to return fire, but nothing comes out except a small puff of smoke. It seems that his last attack on acid breath had used a great deal of his flames, and with his core temperature having been lowered, he needs some time to recharge his batteries. But this is easier said than done, as he can hear Thumbskull getting to his feet and coordinating with his teammate Frightwig, and worst of all, he sees Crab lining up a much larger and much more powerful looking beam. As the energy condenses in the claw of the Crab cannon, not wanting to take the blast head on, Max starts moving his feet to take cover. Crab fires off the attack trying to hit Max, but the Pyronite is just a few paces ahead of him. That is until Thumbskull hits the old Pyronite with a lamppost, sending him straight into the blast. As the attack engulfs Max, it soon blankets the street in smoke and fire. As Crab believes this should have been more than enough to take down the Watchwearer, he warns the circus freaks to stay back. He gets first claim of the body. Frightwig shouts back that he should back off, since the Magma Man is theirs, since he hurt their friend. Crab just sighs that this primitive planet isn't worth his time, getting ready to fire another attack, but this time aimed at the circus freak. However, Frightwig strikes first, throwing stones and debris at the alien bounty hunter, Crab being a pro of aids these by tunneling underground and reappearing next to Thumbskull, slamming his giant metal claw down atop of the opening act. As the true fight is about to break out, a weak voice comes through the smoke, asking if they are done arguing, followed by the smoke finally clearing away, showing a heavily injured looking Pyronite. But thanks to Max's core heat having dropped and his magma having turned to stone, it massively upped his durability. Better yet, the time the group had spent arguing and now fighting, plus the heat from the blast, had allowed Max's core to warm up, enough to produce fire once more, which he is quick to demonstrate, as he gathers a large cluster of heat into his palms, letting a bolt of fire loose, which seemingly misses the group of crooks, getting a small chuckle out of all of them, before the blast hits its mark and the very truck the circus freaks were loading full of good, causing an explosion to erupt behind the group, knocking out Frightwig and Thumbskull while bringing Crab in closer to Max, making the Pyronite smile as he fires a wave of fire into the ground, lifting his knees into Crab's face, the force of the attack almost cracking the mask of the crustacean. Max, now airborne, is about to use the last of his energy in one final attack from above, but due to his overall fatigue, it's taking him longer than expected to charge up the attack. So before he's even beginning to finish up his attack, a figure tackles him, wrapping one set of arms around him, while the other fires blaster bolts into the sides of Max, who can do nothing but groan out in pain before his back is slammed into a wall. The pain is made worse by the fact he is once more finding himself nearing the end of his reserves of heat, so in an effort to put 6-6 down, he fires all the energy he has left directly into the alien's face, knocking 6-6 off him and allowing both of them to fall to the ground. But while 6-6 gets up almost immediately, Max struggles to his feet. This whole situation made worse by the sight Crab is still up and now approaching them. Out of energy and running out of tricks, Max thinks the best thing available for him is to make a run for it and let the watch time out before trying to finish this fight in another alien form. But then the thought of Ben and Gwen being exposed to these guys hits his mind. He won't let that happen. If this fight goes on any longer, he's worried his grandkids will come looking for him, and they can't have that happen. They deserve a normal life. So as 6-6 and Crab start chatting amongst themselves about how to split this bounty, Max uses the last trick he's got, telling Crab that it's clear he should get 80% of the cut, since he did most of the hunting, a sentiment which the crustacean shares, but 6-6 jeers back in some language Max can't understand. However, it's clear that whatever has been said has ticked Crab right off. As the pair start arguing with one another, a fight once again about to break out, and Max begins to focus trying to gather any remnants of heat left in this body to put these guys down with one big attack, making sure to fan the flame of these bounty hunters' greeds, playing to both sides, stating how Crab found him first and did the most damage, but making sure that 6-6 is aware that he was the one to finish the battle and even deal some significant damage of his own, and got him cornered. The tension getting higher and higher, Crab and 6-6, moments away from blasting each other out of existence, both fail to feel the ongoing heat coming from the Pyronite, and just as the two bounty hunters draw their weapons at one another, pointing them at each other's throats, a chuckle escapes Max's mouth, laughing that bad guys will never change, will they? As his fist glows a bright yellow, he opens his arms wide before slamming his two fists together and firing off a tsunami of flames which engulf both bounty hunters and almost all of the street, which only lasts for a split second. But the heat that the two bounty hunters experience is enough to put them down. As the blast ends, the smoking shells of their armor is revealed. While they are not dead, they are most certainly out of this fight. Max chuckles slightly once more, before falling down to his knees once again, gasping for breath, and tasting what he can only imagine is this version of alien blood, as the sound of his imminent change comes following. As Max turns back to himself, a new voice makes itself known, as Max is forced to get up to his feet and turn on his heels, lifting his fists ready to go down swinging, if that's what it requires. But he spots a Petrosapien, whose hands are lifted in a manner to show he means no harms. He introduces himself as Tetrax Shard, telling Max that he was sent here to retrieve the watch, but he has no affiliation with Vilgax, having only used him to have an easier time tracking down the watch wearer. Max, hearing Vilgax's name, can feel his hair stand on edge, his brain immediately telling him that he made the wrong call and he shouldn't have kept the kids around. But not thinking about that right now, he asks Tetrax if he's still going to try and take the watch, all the while keeping his guard up. But the alien shakes his head, saying that he came here to make sure the watch had landed on the right wrist. And from what he can tell, it had. The watch is going to be the thing that changes the war in space, changes the conflict of good versus evil. But from what he can tell, the man knows this. So, happy that the machine is in the hands of a capable warrior, he has no issues leaving the old-timer with the watch. Even if he does have some concerns of the old-timer's age affecting his transformations, he can tell that when Vilgax comes for the watch, he is going to have to put up one hell of a fight. Tetrax smiles before praying Max and his world do not meet a similar fate of his own, before taking flight with his hoverboard, getting ready to book it, advising Max do likewise, and capturing both of his fellow bounty hunters before vanishing into the night. Max doesn't get to ask any of the 1,000 questions coming to mind. He wants to know how Vilgax is alive. He wants to know everything he can about the watch, but the sounds of police sirens reminds Max he's in the danger zone and he needs to get out of here. And more importantly, he needs to make sure his grandkids are safe. He runs towards the rust bucket, hardly able to move his legs and feeling his chest pounding so hard. And as he makes it to the door, it's thrown open in front of him. As Ben shouts back at Gwen, he doesn't care anymore. He's going to find Grandpa and make sure he is safe. But at the sight of the old-timer, the young boy races forwards, wrapping his arms around his grandpa and thanking the gods he is okay. Gwen soon joins in as the trio share a hug, and Max is reminded why the kids are here. They are the best motivation he could ever have, and he swears that when Vilgax comes for him, and he knows he's coming, he will take him down and end what needed to be ended years ago. And for now, that's all I'm telling of this story. I had planned to do all of season 1, just in this part, but I liked this ending, so I stopped. This was originally going to be like a 40-minute-ish video. I like this ending a lot more, since it gives you a taste of what the series will be like. I tried to make sure that the fights are detailed enough that you can see that Max's age is affecting the transformations. I do know there's an argument that the watch puts aliens in their prime, but obviously we've seen that the Fountain of Youth affected Ben's transformations and made them younger, and while there's probably an argument to be made that it was the water spilling on the watch, it's a much more interesting story to me if Max's transformations are affected by his one weakness. He is a mortal man. He is an ex-plumber with years of combat experience who knows the ins and outs of combat, so having him with the watch would simplify the timeline way too much if I didn't give him a downside. So this is my compromise. It's much more interesting and it lets me explore a different side of Ben's aliens, at least for now. After all, I get to play around with how I could see genetic flaws of each alien coming. Like I said, with the Concentrates, they have got immense speed, and as they get older they don't lose much speed, but their stamina and more importantly their ability to turn are lost. Weaker joints just mean harder turning. For Heat Blast, he has a harder time maintaining his core temperature. I think it's very interesting, and I have a few ideas written down for every alien and just a lot of fun things planned. For that all being said, please let me know if you want to keep watching this series. It's really fun for me to write, and it's given me such a great excuse to watch Ben 10 again, and I'll take any of that I can have. That all being said, I do hope everyone had a great day or a good night, and if you haven't seen it, please go watch Pickle Dill's What If Kevin Turned Good. But for now, that's all we're doing. Have a great day and a good night. And remember, it's hero time.